Okay, guys, we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about Aleister Black making his return to WWE. Of course, Aleister Black, formerly known as Malachi Black, has been spending the past few years in AEW, where I wouldn't say he was poorly used, rather, I would say he was underused. Where Aleister Black wasn't, poorly portrayed in AEW. It's not like he was going out there and losing all these matches. He was going out there dominating a lot of guys. I remember his first feud in AEW when he was feuding with Cody Rhodes. Even though the matches probably weren't amazing, they're not super memorable off the top of my head. But to give him that sort of, rivalry, that sort of storyline, that sort of airtime immediately from off the jump showed that AEW rated him quite highly, and I think largely the fan base responded to him quite well. But it's more the fact of Tony Khan's booking an AEW creative, the fact that he was underused. Because like I said, he even would then go on to have a reign with the TNT title. I'm not sure how many times he won it. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'm not going to do no research for it. Of course, he had the House of Black as well, which was a really interesting stable. In fact, it wasn't really an interesting stable. I tell a lie. In theory, just like a lot of AEW stables, in theory, could have been a really good stable. And to be fair, as far as stables go for AEW, these guys were on TV quite a bit, and it felt like these guys would be wrestling largely in tag team matches quite a lot. The problem is, each of those guys in the House of Black, whether it was Buddy Matthews, I think his name was, the guy who's chopping Rhea Ripley, Brody King, and Aleister Black, they're all really talented singles wrestlers, particularly Brody King and Aleister Black, where these guys don't need to be in a tag team. They're more than capable of having good singles matches, but I guess, where AEW have got so many guys and they've oversigned and they've oversigned talent and they've got a stockpile of guys and you're struggling to give everyone airtime, so I get it. I'd rather have the House of Black on TV rather than not have Aleister Black on TV at all, right? But the stable doesn't really do much in terms of, there's not really any development with them. There's no real reason for them to be a stable, which is the case for pretty much all stables in AEW. There's no reason for them to be a stable, and eventually they just fizzle out because there's nothing keeping them together. Once you have one or two good, interesting, kind of cool matches, there's nothing for the stable to do because they don't actually stand for anything. They're just a stable for the sake of being a stable. That being said, I say all of that to say Aleister Black is out of AEW now, despite I think his last match was the match against Edge in the steel cage for the TNT title, which, again, he comes in fighting Cody Rhodes, leaves fighting Edge. He's treated pretty well, right? He was treated pretty well, but now he's in WWE and he faces The Miz. It looks like that's going to be his first sort of storyline. Again, it's going to be a good storyline to get him back into WWE. I imagine he'll beat The Miz pretty handedly. And then we'll see what's next for Aleister Black. The thing is, potentially, there's a lot of potential there, but I keep saying there's a lot of potential there. These kids, they're not spring chickens anymore, right? And these kids aren't going to be at their top level for the next 10 years. I don't know how old Aleister Black is. Again, I'm not looking it up. I'm not going to do any research. But I'm assuming this guy must be at least in his mid-30s by now. Because he was in the Indies for a while, then joins NXT, was on the main roster for a bit, goes to AEW, now he's back in WWE. That's, over the space of, about 10 years at least. So this dude must be, in his mid-30s, right? So he's not going to be at the top level for the next 10 years, is the reality. And he shouldn't be. Because in 10 years, WWE should be able to make way more and way bigger stars than Aleister Black currently is. Right? But, hey-ho, they'll bring him in. He'll win some matches, lose some matches. I imagine similar to guys like Andrade, Karrion Kross even a bit, Braun Strowman, who got released. These guys, WWE aren't able to put us a long-term plan on how to actually book these guys. And not that they can't, they're not willing to, right? Because, and I get it, there's other guys on the roster that are younger, probably cheaper, that can do the same thing but better. But then I ask myself, why even sign these guys? Really? Why sign Rusev? Why sign Aleister Black? I get it, they're good in ring, and I get they could have good characters, but you've got to let them show them. And you've got to allow time to develop those characters and put them in meaningful storylines that not just are means to an end to have a match on a PLE, but storylines where these characters actually go through something that changes them and makes them a more enriched character, right? But I'm saying a lot of stuff. Aleister Black's back in WWE. Some interesting matchups for him on SmackDown, obviously. You know, I could see something potentially nice with a US title run, potentially against Jacob Fatu. That would be a good match. You've got the LA Knights there at that sort of mid-level in SmackDown where Aleister Black will probably be. But who knows? He could go on a run. WWE could back him and maybe he goes on a run. I don't see him ever winning a world title. But who knows? Who knows? But yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag. What did you think of Aleister Black when he was in AEW? And what do you think is going to happen in this next WWE run? I'd be super curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And I'm out. Peace.